Thanks for tuning in to the 2021 eBike Shootout Series. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Yamaha YDX-MORO Pro. So this year we had 12 bikes in our eBike Shootout, and we broke them each down into little micro review episodes before we get to our finale episode, in which we have a roundtable discussion and pit the bikes against each other and see how they stack up. The YDX-MORO Pro retails for $54.99. It was definitely one of the most affordable bikes in our shootout and came with a pretty competent spec for the price. It weighs in at 52.8 pounds. And our size large featured a 478 millimeter reach, 624 mil stack height, 1,253 millimeter wheelbase, and 469 mil chainstays. The seat tube angle is 70.83 degrees, and the head tube angle is 66.3 degrees. Suspension spec on this bike, as you could expect for being fairly price conscious, is closer to the entry mid-level point and comes with its inherent drawbacks in terms of performance, but you get the savings on price, so pick your battle. The Yari RC 160 fork comes up front with a RockShox Super Deluxe Plus Select rear shock. Yamaha has gone the extra mile to create their own motor and drive unit system in the PWX2. It is a very unique system and one that our testers really enjoyed out on the trail. It had some very unique riding characteristics and a very realistic and natural feel that took a little bit of adjusting after coming off some of the other systems, but something that we all really grew to like after spending more time on the bike. So it puts out 80 Newton meters of torque and has a 500 watt hour battery, which is a little bit of a bummer. We're definitely fans of the 630, or larger batteries. We just think that, most of the time when we're going out riding, we're either in boost or we're gonna try to get more miles and more downhills in. So having a little larger battery would be a plus in our opinion. Something we really liked about the battery on the Yamaha was the charge port location. Yamaha has a really cool split tube design, and we could access that very easily. Having a super accessible plug-in at the top, definitely kudos to Yamaha. That was pretty rad. Moving on to the rest of the spec, we've got Magura MT30 brakes with 203 rotors, Shimano XT drivetrain, and this is a 27.5-inch wheeled bike. Yamaha designed this thing to be a plus bike, meaning 2.8-inch tires. We're not huge fans of plus sized bikes. We don't like the handling characteristics and kind of just that vague, floaty loss of traction. We're not fans, although Yamaha specs the bike that way and we rode it that way a little bit. For the shootout, we switched to the 2.6-inch Schwalbe Magic Mary front and Big Betty rear, which were our control tires for all the bikes in the shootout.
I definitely liked the feel of the motor. It's kind of a really natural feeling motor. Just kind of felt like a more fit, more stronger me. Pretty cool top tube, twin. It's like a twin tube design. You can access the battery port, which we like.
So as you heard, some of our riders really enjoyed the motor feel, how natural, predictable it was. It was not a very artificial feel. In fact, my first ride on the bike, it was kind of like, what power mode am I in? I can't quite tell because I feel like I'm breathing harder and pushing harder to try to keep up with guys. And then, I'd round a corner and all of a sudden I feel like I'd gained 20 feet on them. So it's very interesting to see different brands' takes on how and when they apply power down to the ground. We had mixed feelings on the design of the frame. That the look of it, the twin tube. Most of our riders really enjoyed it, either immediately or grew to like it the more they spent time on it and looked at it. So definitely, I think kind of a neat nod to their dirt bike and motorcycle frame history, having that split tube design, but very cool design. I think it looked neat. I wasn't sure at first, but it won me over after I rode it some more. The bike is affordable at $54.99, you know, compared to many other bikes in the category. We had a pre-production bike at the beginning of our test period, and the battery, which was a pre-production battery, was throwing some error codes. We sent an email to the folks at Yamaha, and within an hour actually had someone from Yamaha drive out from Southern California to Utah, deliver us a brand new bike, and it went without hitch for another 5 or 6 days of testing. So big kudos to Yamaha for getting out there, replacing the bike, and ensuring we had a great experience on that. So getting to some of the dislikes, the fork shock combo wasn't our favorite. Again, as we said, you know, concessions have to be made when you want to make a price point happen, and we understand that. But you know, with so many other bikes coming with Zebs and 38s, the Yari and Supreme Select rear shock hold this bike back. And we feel like if you had a little bit more money to put into some better suspension, it would really wake this bike up. The geometry is a little bit odd on the bike. The low stack height, the seat tube angle, it kind of just made for a weird in the saddle position. It just kind of felt reminiscent of like the old school days where you're kind of reached out, leaning forward with a low handlebar height. That was something that took a little bit of getting used to. Obviously, Yamaha, they've been making e-bikes and have made bicycles before in the past, but you know, on one hand, we give them major props for coming into a market where brands have had so many years of feedback and evolution. And, you know, for them to really kind of come in with a pretty early, you know, first or second year dual suspension e-bike and be competitive is pretty impressive. So I think a little bit of tuning on that geometry is going to make this bike really do better. We think a little better tune on that rear shock could make this bike improve quite a bit. And the other thing that some of our riders took issue with was the large display unit. We liked the location of it. It was visible. We liked how it had different colored LED lights in the display to let you know what power mode you're in. We liked the fact that you had so many different types of power modes, from smart, you know, kind of auto sensory modes to more manual individual modes. But nevertheless, it was big. We never actually hit our knees on, but we felt like we could. It's just big and bulky, and a lot of riders like a thinner, more streamlined appearance on their bike. So that, in a nutshell, is the Yamaha YDX-MORO Pro, a very strong showing for such an early bike out of this brand. We were excited to get some time on this thing. Really appreciate them taking the time to get us a new bike out, and are excited to see where this bike continues to evolve and grow as the brand keeps pushing and chasing into that eMTB space. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for our final episode, in which we will be putting the Yamaha up against the other bikes in our roundtable discussion and share with you guys all of our findings after 10 days of testing in Utah. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you out on the trails.